Can you hear me? Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Roxanne Morgan. I'm a teacher here, and I am basically obsessed with walking pilgrimages pretty much all over the world. Has anyone done a pilgrimage? Done a walk? Okay. Just want to say first off, all of my pictures were taken with my iPhone. I didn't change any of them. So this is just your daily walk in Japan, by the way. So I just want you to know this, I didn't do anything to these photos, and it was just my iPhone 8 doing these, because they're awesome. Just a couple of things very quickly to establish. So 6 years ago, I did my first Camino de Santiago, which is a 500-mile pilgrimage across northern Spain. I did it for fun with my boyfriend at the time. And then I went through a series of personal tragedies, and every time I just was like, I knew I had to get back. So I actually have walked the Camino de Santiago 6 times. I've done them all 500, 600 miles each time. And then a couple of years ago when I was on the Camino de Santiago, I met some Australian women who lead tours of the Kumano Kodo, which is the Japanese pilgrimage. And of course, as someone said, hey, go walk in a strange country for a long time, I got super crazy excited. So for you teachers out there, a year ago I took a type C leave, which is like a sabbatical, and then I basically backpacked around the world for 6 months. And I was in Japan for 2 months, and I did the Kumano Kodo. So very brief history of the Kumano Kodo. It was founded in the 6th century, but it didn't really get established until the 9th century, when they had a combination of Shinto and Buddhism really came together as the established religions of Japan. The Kumano Kodo is 1,000 kilometers long. Royalty were expected to walk it, and they are pretty much the only ones who did walk it, okay? For many centuries, that's what you did. I mean, walking 1,000 kilometers takes you about 40 days. And it really was meant to bring peace and clarity to the mind of the people who were leading us. Interestingly, in the 19th century, mid-20th century, there was a massive decline due to the change in power in the Japanese government, and also in religion. And practically no one walked the Kumano Kodo anymore. Also, they were harvesting the forest, because it's all forest, for wartime efforts. Thought that was interesting. It wasn't until the mid to late 20th century, and of course now early 21st century, that it's really picked up, especially with people being able to travel all around the world like they can. And I can't stress enough how easy it is to walk the Kumano Kodo. The hardest part is getting there. That's just a plane, and then a bullet train. Once you're there, it's seriously easy. So, first thing I want to talk about. So this is a picture I took just walking. The first thing I want to talk about here are the onsens. I did not take this picture. Onsens are the hot baths that are associated, that is a part of Japanese culture, and it is so indoctrinated into their culture that when every day at the end of your day, when we would walk all day, you would stop and then you would undress. And once you reach your inn, you would undress. Every single night we did this. And then you would cleanse, and I'll show you pictures later of later pictures of the onsens I visited. And they're big rooms like this. And in the corner are these little showers with buckets. Okay, and they're single sex, they're not mixed sex. And before I left, friends stressed that you're going to have to take an onsen, and you may not wear a bathing suit. There is nothing for it. The first onsen, the first night, was terrifying. I just kind of stood there, and we're kind of crouched down. And then the second night, you're like, who cares? So it's very interesting ritual. You walk into the bathing room. The first thing you do is you wash yourself incredibly. You have buckets of water, you pour them, you shampoo, you soap down. Then you get into the big pool of hot water, of which all the other women are in there also. So you don't just crawl into a big hot tub with a bunch of women. So I wanted to lay that out front. The most terrifying thing, I think, of the entire pilgrimage is having to bathe nude every night with other people. It's also pretty much a strong ritual on the Kumano Kodo. There's no really getting out of it. Many of the inns that I stayed in had private onsens, so they actually were pretty much like rain barrels of hot water. So they're little steps, so or they were buried in the ground, but you did kind of like have to kind of like, sometimes you were just like this, up to your neck in hot water. There was nothing for it. When you come out of the onsen, you were then given a yukata. A yukata is like a casual kimono, and you wear that for the rest of the evening. So you can't have dinner, you can't do anything until you have your onsen, and then you're nicely, snugly warm in your yukata. I think that's the most terrifying thing of doing this pilgrimage. This, as you can see down here, this is a map of Japan. Here is Tokyo, Nagoya, and Osaka, okay? And the Kii Peninsula or Nara area is right here. It's kind of that dip down below. And the Kumano Kodo has a couple of different trails, but as you can see here, this is the one I walked. It started here, and we walked all the way down to here, and then we went all the way down to Nachi, Katsuro. And the traditional Kumano Kodo, what's left of it, which you can walk, is literally 5 days and 72 kilometers. Okay? It's not bad. The Camino de Santiago is 500 miles and 31 days, depending on how fast you walk. But the Japanese Kumano Kodo is only 5 days. That's all you need in order to get your compostela. That's actually a Spanish word. Does anyone know, can someone tell me, why do we walk pilgrimages? All you anthropology students here. Yes?
To honor the past and to cleanse and meditate.
Yes, to honor the past, cleanse and meditate. Also, at the end of both pilgrimages, you get to a holy shrine where you are given a certificate of completion, which also is an absolution of all your sins. It's a pretty good reason. I've done the Camino so I've done 8 pilgrimages in my life. I figure I'm really good for any type of sinning I want to do, right? Because I can just go back out and... so having done the Camino de Santiago, I finished my compostela. And when because the Kumano Kodo and the Camino de Santiago are twinned, they are the oldest World Heritage sites in the world. They both started in the 9th century. I became a dual pilgrim. So I brought my compostela from Spain, carried it with me, and at the end, you'll see, sorry, I choked up. At the end, you go to a temple, and there's a special bell that only dual pilgrims get to bang in Japan, and I got to bang it. God, that was amazing. And so now I have dual pilgrim for both countries. So just to kind of give you an idea of where this is, again, you start up here, and you can walk, there's various routes. But down here in the Osaka, so I'm just gonna let us roll for a little bit and show you. Every night we would stop in an inn, and this is, we call this food porn, because it was just the most gorgeous food every night. We would sit on the ground. This was our bedroom. Those are tatami mats. This was our daily walk, the way we just every day. Again, this day was miserable. There was a typhoon, that's me. It's raining so hard I can't see straight. A typhoon hit when we were there, but our guides were really good and stopped us. So The day works the way all pilgrimages work the same. You wake up in the morning, you put your backpack on, you carry all your own things with you from inn to inn, okay? That, if anyone's watching the Outlander series, that was me trying to be an Outlander, trying to go through the fairy rock. Yeah, I know, I'm a bit of a ham, I'm sorry. So every day we would walk, but you went through towns that have been around since, since the beginning of time. Again, another view from our room. You're walking past amazing castles, amazing temples. Our guides, were my two friends, were always giving us history lessons and telling us about it. Again, every single night, this was our meal, different types of food. There are really, unless you're in the big cities, there are no McDonald's, there are no fast food restaurants. Japanese don't really believe in fast food, except for the bento boxes at the train station, which are awesome. And everything is served with incredible pride. So you'll see a variety of food items the way they're presented, whether they're in towers or they're in boxes. And each food item is in its own little dish. It's very important. They can't stand the thought of like our Thanksgiving dinners, where we mush everything onto one plate and then just wah, okay? Every single food item has its own special dish and it has its own amazing flavor. Oh yeah, the bouncing kitty, that was I think that was in Matsumoto. Okay, move on. I love the red bridges here as you're walking along. A couple of things I just wanted to talk about. If you are thinking about doing a pilgrimage, it is probably the least expensive thing in the world you can do. Granted, the cost of flying to Spain or of flying to Japan is expensive. I flew for about $1,500 to Tokyo, and then you take the bullet train into Osaka. But when you walk every day, you're not spending much money at all. Because you're walking all day, you're stopping for coffee, stopping for sake, a lot of sake. And the joy of the inns that you stay in, everything that you need. They don't have coffee in Japan, so we carried our own coffee. It's kind of important to me. Again, this is everything you're walking through. So again, a couple of stories. Haikus. We all had haiku contests wherever we go. I never understood a haiku until I went to Japan. And the most amazing scenery, the most amazing experiences, we all just started throughout the day when you're walking for 8 hours a day, we started to have haiku slams, which were great. And, but we were definitely inspired by the beauty of what we were seeing. Very high point right there. Another really, Michael, that's for you right there. Sorry. I love that one. I think that's a great title of a book. Yeah. The Japanese translations are wonderful. They're very sweet. They're very gentle, but there's always a little bit of amusement along the way. This one was not amusement. Along the Kumano Kodo, there are a lot of bears. So there's a lot of signs, obviously saying bears, and there's a lot of bear bells, which we thought was a little ironic. We think that the bears actually put them up there, because there's big bears, big bells, and you're supposed to walk along and you're supposed to bang the bells. And we all had bells on our backpack, so we made a lot of noise. That way the bears knew we were coming and presumably ran away. We never saw a bear. There's never been a bear attack on the Kumano Kodo, but we all think that the bears put the signs up so that they know that we're coming and that they can have us for dinner. But we never saw a bear, except we were banging so hard, I don't think they wanted to hear us. or see us. Yes, yeah. This was a little tea room we came across just in the middle of nowhere. That's how they make their tea. And a man he stays there waiting for pilgrims to walk by and serve us tea. As I said, when we were there, two typhoons actually hit. We actually sheltered in place. The one thing about the Kumano Kodo and about the Japanese is they are the nicest people in the entire world, and they will go do everything to accommodate you at every level. So a typhoon was coming, and immediately officials came out and found everyone on the route and stopped us and brought us to shelter, a small town where we knew that if the typhoon really was bad, we'd be okay. And then the next morning they let us go, so to speak. Part of the trail was damaged when we were walking, and within a day they had created a diversion for us. So I was super impressed. I mean, I think any other country that suffered any type of environmental damage, they'd be all like, whatever. But they were very careful to, that is a sake bar. Lots of sake. So I was really impressed by everyone we met, and the helpfulness. And again, little tea houses in the middle of nowhere. Every morning when we would leave our little ryokans, they would provide a lunch for us. So when we were walking, I wanted to show this right here. Fish is a staple, and every single one of our meals either had a completely deep fried fish, not the deep fried fish that we have. It doesn't have batter on it, but it is submerged in oil and then covered in salt, and it's just heavenly. So good for dinner and lunch. And for breakfast, fish for the breakfast. This was an outdoor bathroom we found. We were very, very excited. Yes, what we call a Western toilet, okay? The toilets you would find in Japan, they're about 50-50 at this point between holes in the ground and a Western toilet. Sorry. So when we did, that was another food presentation, the tower. So when we did find a Western toilet, we got very, very excited. Now, again, the Japanese are incredibly meticulous that when we were hiking, we would find regular, like that metal bathroom, we would find it in the middle of nowhere. And I do not want to be offensive, but they don't want people to poop out on the ground. I don't want to offend your daughter. On the Camino de Santiago, you do find a lot of that, which is very sad, but I think that the Japanese, they actually provided facilities for us along the trail, which I just thought was phenomenal. So again, the cost once you get there is very nominal. How to do either the Kumano Kodo or do the Camino de Santiago, you do not need a guide, all right? The Japanese Tourist Bureau has created a program that lets you self-guide yourself along the Kumano Kodo. You just need to get to the main tourist office. Oh, that was a great lunch. There was snow. This was October, a year ago exactly now, actually. So a year ago today, I would have been on the, these are my pictures from then. So the Japanese Tourist Bureau has created an amazing program. All you have to do is to get to the first day of the Kumano Kodo. There is a massive tourist office. They provide guides, maps, and they will also, if you prepare ahead of time, they will book all of your ryokans for you. The ryokans are the family-owned B&Bs, really. There's not many, so unlike the Camino de Santiago that you can kind of just ruck up in a town and say, I need a bed, and you'd find one, the Kumano Kodo is much more difficult. But if you plan ahead, then they will book all of your accommodations for you, and when you arrive, they just give you a map guide and say, here you go, and you walk. Along the way, there are markers the entire time. There is absolutely no point, and you do not need a guide. I went with 2 guides, but they were friends of mine, and they spoke Japanese, which I enjoyed very much. But I think I was the only one who had guides, bless you. I just met countless people who just started walking. The trail is well marked. Along the way, you might see here in a moment a box. Along the way, you carry a long accordion-like piece of paper, and you get stamps along the way. We're being very silly. This is one of the onsens. Oh, went past. Okay. I think we have a. So they give you your yukata every night. These are yukatas we just had on there. Plum sake, very nice. So along the way, there are boxes, and when you open them up, they have red stamps in them. And then every time you just stamp what we say is your credencial, right? And that way, it proves that you walked. And these boxes are in the deepest, darkest of the forest. I mean, you'll come around the corner and you'll be like, there is a box here with a very well-inked ink pad, okay? Again, the Japanese are meticulous about maintaining this. It is a very prominent, spiritual, important part of the Japanese culture. When I was in Tokyo visiting friends, they were shocked that I was going to do it. They had never done it. They had always wanted to do it. They thought that much more of me that I had flown all the way over to do this. So the maintenance along the trail is incredible. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to go back to that one. So right here, here's a good picture of an onsen that I was talking about. So again, they're single sex, and this is exactly what they all look like. You came in, you sat down on your little chair here, the spigot, and it's all very low. So you sit down on the stool. Here's the spigot, shampoo, conditioner, body soap, everything. You thoroughly cleanse yourself here, okay? And then this is the nice big hot tub, and it had nice windows. So everyone cleans, and then you get into the hot water. And it's actually incredibly refreshing. It's very nice. So you don't just kind of jump into a pool with a bunch of dirty, icky people. And there is that one. That was just one night. I did a couple of different, because I was going all the way to Japan, I did actually 2 back-to-back hikes. I did 20 days. I hiked the Kumano Kodo and the Nakasendo Kisi Valley, which runs from Nagoya up to Matsumoto, and then went back down. So there are a couple pictures here from both trips. If any of you have ever heard, of course, Japan is very famous for, I just love that sign, I had to share. Did you all see that? Oh, did you not see that? If you're drinking to forget, please pay in advance. I just thought that was wonderful. This was, okay, sorry about that. That was a friend of mine just in one of the onsens. He was covered up, but I just wanted to show you. We did actually see these, I was super shocked. All of a sudden, they came running past us, and we all pulled out our cameras crazy fast and got super excited about these. I think we have a box coming up here. So as you can see, also the trail is maintained, but it's not easy. I mean, it's not something you could walk along and kind of be looking around and doing this. You'd have to keep your eyes down and look at the trail. These are called torii gates, very important as part of your spiritual journey. Nope, that's not where I thought I was. Okay, so here we are coming into to a village called Koyazan. Koyazan is a spiritual village founded by the monk Kobo Daishi, who brought Shingoism to Japan. I think this village alone has over 120 temples and shrines. I was in heaven. I'm actually going back there in March to meditate at one of the shrines. We stayed at a monastery that is open to visitors, and we lived with the monks for a couple of days before we moved on. We meditated, we froze to death. It was incredibly cold there. But we also were able to visit the Mausoleum of Kobo Daishi, who over 100 years ago, I believe, went into his mausoleum, had made great and wonderful changes to Japan, and then went into his mausoleum and shut the doors and is still there. The monks get up every morning at 6 a.m. and make breakfast for him, and every night they take dinner up to him. The gates of the doors to his mausoleum have not been opened in over 100 years, but it is believed, of course, he is there and praying for all of us. So this was an amazing town to be in Koyazan. It was just incredibly fantastic. And obviously the rock gardens fascinated me to no end. One of the things I found about being in Japan, that's our room. This was at the monastery with the monks in Koyazan. This was at one of the ceremonies. We were very honored and very lucky to be able to go to one of the ceremonies where they build up a fire to raise your prayers to the sky and bring the fire back down. I actually bumped into someone who had been on the Camino. That's me on the left. It was getting colder and colder as the days went on. The language, it was very interesting. I felt that I had more people in Japan would speak more English. I didn't find that. I actually found that the less English was spoken than I kind of hoped. But to be honest, it didn't matter at all. The Japanese are the nicest people in the world. They will do anything to help you. So even if there was a lack of communication, they would go completely out of their way to ensure that you got what you wanted. And also with technology, I'm a total techno geek. Actually, one day, this woman and I, we just really couldn't, between hand gestures and all of that, we couldn't get to it. So I actually turned on Google Translate. She spoke into my phone, and it translated in English for me, which was pretty amazing. And when you're at the ryokans, even deep in the mountains, you're a pilgrim. You're there to rest, you're there to bathe, and you're there to eat. Okay, so again, the people, the innkeepers, they didn't have much English, but it was all understood. There was not much more that needs to be translated. I did want to share one funny story early on. So the onsens are very, very hot water, okay? Oh, that was a view from our bedroom. So one night we got into our hotel, or our ryokan, and in my group we had 9 women and 3 men. My friend got pooped on by a monkey. I thought that was funny, coming down from the tree. And I thought that looked like a frog. Sorry, I'm clearly in love with my own photos. It was just the most amazing experience, and I can't wait to go back next year. Anyhow, there's the box with the stamps. And there's our stamps. They're beautiful. Each stamp is unique. And that way, when you get to the, that's a little hot springs. When you get to your final destination, they're very meticulous. They look at all of your stamps, make sure you didn't skip any part of the route, and they know the stamps. So they're kind of like, well, you're missing that stamp. So those stamps are all individual and very unique. And at the end, he counts them up and he compares them, and then he very carefully decides whether or not you can have your compostela, your certificate. So one night we got into our ryokan and they only had one onsen. So the ladies went first and then the men decided to sit around and have some sake and some maybe some Asahi beer while they were waiting. Well, my friend Orlando from Melbourne, Australia, he had a little too much peach sake. And my roommate and I, we were lying on our tatami mats. We had bathed. We were lying on our tatami mats with our yukatas on, and so the women had bathed and the men went in to bathe. All of a sudden, my friend Bunny runs into the room and she yells at Louise. Louise was my sleeping roommate for the trip, and Louise is a trauma nurse from Australia. And so Bunny just ran in and said, "Louise, Orlando's dead." Eek. So we all went running down the hallway in our yukatas, and sure enough, he wasn't dead, but he had had a little too much sake, and then got into the hot onsen, and then came out and was all like, and big goose egg on his head. Well, Louise goes running in, and there's been a couple of pictures of Louise in here. She is 6'5", and she's a cattle rancher and a trauma nurse from Australia. So she goes running in. Orlando's naked. The rest of us are like, okay, whoops, no. She goes running in, puts a little towel on him, starts giving him CPR, and gets him back. Well, of course, the innkeeper starts running around, and then I run down, and so I run back down the end of the ryokan to go get Orlando's wife. Let me back up 1 second here. So your yukata, which is what the kata, is very specifically, you wear it this way, and then this way. Okay? And then you put your obi on, your sash. Okay? Well, Louise and I had just been hanging out, right? Like I was wearing leggings and a t-shirt underneath, and so I hadn't put my obi on. When Bunny came in and said, "Ah!" we both went running down the hallway, all right? Louise immediately went in to help Orlando. I went running back down the hallway to get Orlando's wife, and as I turned around, the innkeeper, she was about 95 years old, just energetic as heck. She was running after me. She was super mad, and even she knew what was going on, but she was running after me, and she was holding up an obi. She was furious that I was running around with my yukata flapping open, despite the fact that our friend was down. So I stopped. I was very respectful. I put on my yukata. And then, I was so scared. So there I am banging the ceremonial drum for a dual pilgrimage. So this is at the end. Anyhow, so the ambulance comes to get Orlando, and then Orlando's wife comes running down the hallway, and she's got shoes on, and the innkeeper goes running after her and starts hitting her with a stick, because you're not supposed to wear shoes. And so she's like, what? But the funniest thing is, it was fascinating to me, because you're not supposed to wear, we never wear shoes inside. The ambulance pulls up out front, and the EMTs, they run in with a huge stretcher, and they dash right up to the edge of getting into the house, and then they're like, I've never seen anyone kick shoes off that fast. I was like, wow, you guys are good at this. So they take Orlando out to the ambulance. Louise is like, oh, I'm going with them. The Japanese EMTs are looking at Louise, 6'5", huge Australian trauma nurse who's on, doing this. Everyone gets in the ambulance, the wife, Louise, Orlando, our guide who speaks Japanese and obviously is from Australia. And then, but they all sat there, and of course the ambulance is heaving full. And at the last minute, one of the innkeeper's granddaughters, she comes running out, kicks off her shoes, obviously, and she has a basket of warm rice balls to give to, and then she's like, no. And so she gives them, the warm rice balls for the ride to the hospital. I just thought, I am still such close with all these people, and we say it's the Orlando incident. We still laugh about it. But the whole thing, Orlando came back later that night. He was perfectly fine. He had a big goose egg on his head. But we have not stopped laughing about all the, you know, me running with an open yukata. Oh, sorry. The wife running with her shoes, getting hit by the little old lady, you know, like, no. And then the EMTs kicking off their shoes super fast. That's the end. And we've come around. So the other thing, the last thing about the hospital incident is the Japanese hospital system is a lot different from our own. They gave Orlando MRIs, they gave him a full workup. Apparently it was a slow night, and everyone wanted to see the huge Australian nurse, by the way, trauma nurse, so everyone over. And afterwards, the full charge for Orlando's 5-hour hospital stay was $200. Yeah, it was amazing. 200 American dollars, that's all they charged him for everything. Anyhow, that's really all I mean, I could go on for days about this, but I would love to I know many of you are students and you're here for an assignment. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
How many miles did you hike today?
Oh, that's a great question. We would hike anywhere from about 15 to 20. 1 or 2 days, it was only 10 because there was one hill, I can't pronounce it in Japanese, it's called Backbreak Hill, and it's literally 5 miles about that elevation. You're almost just putting your hand out, and you keep thinking, and there's never like a, you know, it's never like, it's just that way, and you think it's, when you start off, you're like, yeah, and then, oh my God.
Was it always wet and slippery, or was it dry?
Oh, no, no, the first 10 days it was wet and slippery because of the typhoons, and then afterwards it was beautiful and dry. The second days it wasn't raining, but because most of it is in a forest, it tends to be a little bit more moist. Also, we went in October and November. So, yeah.
Also, did you run across any cherry blossoms?
No, I was at the end. So my friends, there. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you ever go hiking, that is your friend, Aquarius. It's a European Gatorade, and I couldn't believe it. I found it in Japan, so it's awesome. I apologize. What was your question again?
Cherry blossoms.
No, I was too late. My friends who do these trips, they do 2 trips a year in April and in October. And so I missed the cherry blossoms. I'm doing it again in March, and I'm kind of hoping I hit some cherry blossoms. Yeah.
What's the approximate cost for the in-stays at night?
I'm sorry?
When you stay at night at the inn?
Oh, they were about, okay, so I hiked for 20 days, and I paid $2,000, and that covered all of my accommodation and all of my food. And that included the 2 guides I had. So, and my friends who were the guides, they just want to cover their own expenses. So there's like, it's, so, so you could say about the inns were probably like 30 or maybe 20 or $30 a night. They're very simple, basic. And then the food was just amazing every night. Yeah.
Is it a big forest or just narrow along the path?
It's narrow along a path, yes. It's very mountainous down there. As you could saw from the first picture, we did start in the middle and then worked our way down to the coast.
It's not really big.
No. There was a lot of narrow paths. And I, every once in a while I joked to them all like, well, you can't see the forest through the trees. And gosh, I'd like to see something. But a lot of times you saw those, the great thing is that the ryokans, they'd be at the top of the mountain. So you'd climb, you'd be tired, and then you'd get to an inn and you'd look down and be like, oh, really? And it'd be spectacular views. So it was worth the climbing through the day. But yes, narrow paths. Yeah.
So how far are you from the city, you know, like, into town? You know what I mean? Like, how, like, if we were in, like, a country setting and we were going to, like, a more urban area, like, how far were you from where everybody commutes and, you know?
That's a really great question. A funny thing, if I can back up, on the Camino de Santiago, if anyone's going to or want to do that, I always laugh because you walk, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, but literally 5 miles on either side of you is a Costco. So, I mean, you're never far from like super industrial city. In Japan, for sure, the nearest big city would have been Osaka. And that was an hour-and-a-half train ride. So we all met in Osaka, and then we took an hour-and-a-half train ride, and then we walked into Koyazan. So about an hour and a half. Yeah, and in that peninsula where we ended up, there wasn't much. It wasn't much. Yes.
I'm curious, the food looked so appetizing and different from the Japanese, so-called Japanese food here. How is it different from real Japanese food to Americanized Japanese food?
Oh my goodness. I'm crazy about Japanese food. I haven't found anything here since I've been back. I didn't see that much sushi when I was over there. I saw a lot of, like a lot of the meals we would have sashimi, which is just the raw fish. At the fast food, we would get soba and udon. There is no comparison. There is no comparison.
My Chinese friends are telling me that there's no such thing as general chicken or kung pao chicken in China.
Oh, no. I lived and taught in India for a while, and after I got back from India, I was all like, same thing. I'm like, I went to I was like, what? This is not Indian food. Yeah, don't travel. It ruins America for you, okay? Yeah.
What about safety? Personal safety along the way?
Oh my gosh. Japan is the safest country I have ever been to in my life. It is ridiculous. I am one of those people who walks like I've got the purse with the steel cable around it and it's RFID blocking and I walk with it like this. And I'm always looking around like, right? So one of my friends, the one who always over there, one day she had her wallet open with a bunch of cash hanging out. And she's like, oh, this is really cool. What do you think of this? Should we get, I'm all like, oh. No, it is safe beyond, I was there for 2 months on my own. I was there for 2 months. When I got there, I was terrified because I had never been to a country that I couldn't kind of like romance my language way through. And by the end, I traveled by myself for 2 weeks, and I was on trains, I stayed in hostels, I took boats, I went down to Miyajima, never for a second was I scared. I was in Europe last New Year's Eve, and I was actually far more terrified of being in Paris and England on New Year's Eve than any second I was in Japan. Safe, honest, nice. I'm actually going back for New Year's Eve this year. I can't wait to go back to Japan. Now I'm going back. Yeah.
What's the best time of year in your opinion to go?
Okay, so yes, April or October. You get the nice weather. April you get the cherry blossoms, and it's not as cold. I am going on Christmas Day. I am flying to Japan. I'm going to go do some hiking on Mount Fuji, and I know the average temperature is going to be about 20 degrees, but I'm a Boston girl, so I can do that. When I go back in March to walk the Kumano Kodo again, it's going to be probably in the mid-60s. So October and March, April-ish. It's a nice, good, it's perfect walking weather. 60s, a little bit, cool. You don't want it to be too hot. The typhoons you can never guess or prepare for, but like I said, they were phenomenal in taking us in. And I'm on a lot of Kumano Kodo blogs, and the typhoons that hit last month, every single person who was out there hiking said, oh my gosh. Some Japanese people showed up and said, you must come with us. There is danger. Come, we will take you to a safe place. And didn't charge them, put them up in good, safe hotels. They said, no, you're a guest of our country and there's potential danger. Please stay here. So, and I was just not surprised. So, very easy to get around the country of Japan. The bullet train makes it ridiculously easy. Questions? Please.
So you've done 8 total pilgrimages?
Yes.
What types of groups have you done with? I imagine the ages vary. I wish I could go, but I have a 2-year-old, so I'm guessing that won't fly. Because he's a kid. No?
No, I've seen people on the Camino de Santiago with babies, children, stroller, they run for a while, they push them. Not at all. I don't think there's, I personally wouldn't go on the Japanese one with a 2-year-old because there's some really difficult paths and I wouldn't be sure of my footing. The Camino de Santiago is much easier to walk and there's a lot more support. So for example, on the Camino de Santiago, basically every 3 or 4 miles, there's a small village where they have food and they have support and, you know, café con leche, thank goodness. On the Kumano Kodo, you definitely go 5 or 6 hours before you see anything. So every day we would walk, there was one day there was nothing, they told us. They said there is nothing today, so get what you need here because we're going 8 hours and there is nothing. So there is no support. On the Camino de Santiago, at any moment you can stop and go, there's a little, on the trees, there's a little sign saying, taxi? Call Juan, right? Anytime on the Camino de Santiago, you can be all like, all right, I'm done, get me out of here. Or grab a local bus. On the Kumano Kodo, no, there are places, if you hurt or broke down, I would be like, I don't even know what you would do. Because there's no way to get to where you were. But to answer your question, the first year I walked with my boyfriend, the second year I walked by myself, the 500 miles, but you meet so many people along the way. By the end, I had my wolf pack. There was like 60 of us. You know, you end up kind of sleeping in the same places with people, eating, you kind of roll with each other. The third time I walked with a friend, fourth with another friend. So, but along the way, I mean, it's super safe for women to walk by yourself. You meet people along the way, you get into packs, as I call them, wolf packs. So it's very safe, very easy. The Japanese are a little more safer than the Camino.
What was it like to ride a bullet train? What does it feel like?
So I met my friend in Tokyo Station and got on the bullet train. I'm all like, yay! And of course, like I get in the window seat and I'm all like, right? And then threw up. If you don't look out the window, it feels perfectly fine. It's actually on a cushioned, elevated rail. It's phenomenally scientific, futuristic type. You don't even feel it. Like if you don't look out the window, it's just like, you could like have a cup of coffee and it doesn't even tremble, right? And the bullet trains are super comfortable, very roomy. They make our Amtraks look like, even economy, what I was in. The problem with looking out the window is seeing how fast you go and how fast things go by. And the other problem is when they go through, so in the major cities, they are densely populated, super tall buildings, and the bullet train will go by, I swear it's no more than a foot past like an apartment building or a business building. So you're like, yeah, go, you go, right? And what's also beautiful about Japan is that people talk about overpopulated it is. Once you get out of the major cities, you're in rolling countryside. The train from Tokyo to like Kyoto or Osaka, I mean, most of the time you're just like, wow, look at that rolling countryside, and oh my God, that's Mount Fuji. Oh God, don't look. Mount Fuji. So I got used to it towards the end, but I literally threw up the first time. The second and the third and the fourth times, I'm all like, I got this. And you stop at the station and you get your bento box and then you get on and it's smooth, 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 smooth. But halfway through the trip, we were in Kyoto, and I saw this beautiful ceramics I wanted, but I'm like, I'm not carrying it. I got a backpack. When I finished up, I was in Tokyo, and I had 2 days, and I'm like, God, I really wanted that pottery. And I was like, wait a minute. The bullet train's 250 miles an hour, and I want to go to Kyoto, and it's 400 miles away. So I literally was just like, at the time, I'm like, I'm not coming back. I'm going to do this. So I got a 7 a.m. bullet train from Tokyo, 400 miles away. I was there in an hour and a half. I got off the train. I went to the China shop. I bought my China in Kyoto, got back on the bullet train. I was back in Tokyo by 1 o'clock. Can you imagine Amtrak doing that? Can't even get to San Francisco in under 2 hours, all right? I mean, so it is crazy convenient, and it's a beautiful, smooth ride once you get used to how fast things go outside. Yeah.
Can you just comment briefly on your own internal spiritual experience?
Yeah, I'll probably cry, but I'm happy to share. The first time I walked was just for fun. The second time, my mom died very suddenly. She had by the time they discovered cancer, she died a week after that. And my dad fell apart, and I'm the glue of the family. So once we kind of got my dad kind of propped up, I knew I had to walk the Camino. And I went back on my own. I spent the first week and a half sobbing hysterically. And then this very nice young seminarian from Ohio, 22 years old, adorable, kind of latched himself onto me, and I was all like, what the heck? And we called him Father What a Waste, because he was absolutely beautiful, and he was in the Catholic seminary. He told us that was his name, by the way. I did not call him that. But he walked with me for a week, and then I had a number of Camino angels. I just had more and more, and I ended up with this group who I'm still extraordinarily close with, who just kind of carried me the 500 miles. And when I got back, my father was still a wreck, and my brother was still a wreck, and I was a wreck, but I was able to deal with things because I had just let it out. 2 years after that, when my dad died very unexpectedly, same thing. Like I felt like I dealt with it better in my spiritualness, and then I went and walked the hardest Camino because I knew I needed, and my best friend came along with me, and again, I spent a lot of time sobbing on the top of, and we don't get to do this in life. You know, when bad things happen to us, it's like, come on, perk it up, buck it up. You got to go to school. You got to get the kids. You got to do this. You need groceries. So I was able to honor my sorrow and honor my pain, and stand on top of cliffs sobbing hysterically while my friend was holding my legs because there was big wind gusts. She's like, no, can you not do that? So I was able to experience my pain and my grief very strong, very important to me. And then that's how I feel like I've been able to manage the shock of, 5 years ago, my parents were going to live forever and drive me nuts, right? They were both super healthy, traveling around the world, having a great time. And they both died within 2 years of each other. My mom of cancer, my dad of a broken heart. And yeah, I can only say, in the last 2 minutes, I will say the most important thing about a pilgrimage is this. The first 4 days, you're like, yay, this is fun, I'm walking, woo, yahoo, great. And then you start to run out of things to think about. Like right now, you guys, some of you are like, you're here for your class assignment. Fine, okay, good, I can check this off, what I needed to do, I get the extra credit, great. When I get home tonight, I gotta pick up the kids, and oh my God, he better have brought that bread home, and that light bulb's out, right? We're always distracted. We've always got things. I'm right now thinking of all the papers I gotta grade tonight. When you're on the Camino, when you're doing a pilgrimage, you run out of things, distractions. And on the fourth day, it's a very classic thing on a pilgrimage. On the fourth day, you run out of like, I gotta, and then you are face to face with that thing that you have pushed down all your life. That pain, that sorrow, that whatever you were going through in your life. And the the first 4 days, it's all like, oh, and then those 3 days that follow are horrible. You're miserable, you're sobbing, you're crying because you were actually face to face with that which you've done a good job of. Nope, not now. Nope, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. And you are face to face with that which you don't want to deal with, and you've done a really good job of putting away. And you hit rock bottom like you've never hit rock bottom you've ever thought of in your life. And it's happened to me every single time. But the best part about hitting rock bottom like you've never hit rock bottom is when you start coming up. It is so amazing. Like I'm all wired up here so I can't do it, but like I would take my coat off right now and I would just kick my shoes off and you're like, oh yeah, I got this. I got this. And so that is your spiritual there. It is like you get to that core you've avoided all your life, you start coming back up. Food tastes amazing. The landscape is gorgeous. You're the nicest person in the entire world. And ever since my very first pilgrimage, I have been a nicer person. Just don't look at my professor. But I am a nicer person. I see things in different ways. I don't look at everything adversarial like I used to. I am a much different person because I got there and I wrestled and I came back up. And I would argue at every single pilgrimage, it's not the blisters, it's not the sore knees, it's not like, my back is killing me. It's you getting to the bottom of this. That is the part that hurts the most at any pilgrimage. I don't want you to be late for your classes. Thank you very much, everybody.